we can get started, and I'll continue letting people in. My name is Julia Snyder. I run programming for Beth Meyer. And tonight we have our guest speaker of Chantal Taunton. Is that how you pronounce her last name? Yes. And she is a park ranger for North Carolina. And she was born and raised in the Netherlands, currently lives in Raleigh. She spent 26 years in law enforcement, but she has been an amateur photographer and captures wildlife and birds using black and white photography. And she focuses on inspiring others to appreciate and respect nature. So she's here tonight to talk about photography. So I'll hand the floor over.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad to be here with you on a Monday night. I'm so glad we had some rain. We needed it. But it's an honor to be with all of you tonight. I'm hoping I'm working this screen correctly. I don't know if I'm on the main screen right now or not, but here pretty soon I will start sharing my screen with you, and you'll start seeing a PowerPoint pop up. I don't like talking about myself, but there's a little introduction in there, just a teeny tiny 3-slide history about the park as well, and then we'll go on and talk about what do I see in the park? And I'll share that with you through my photographs. And all the pictures that you will see in tonight's PowerPoint I took with my camera. Here's my camera. I usually disappear behind my camera. So this is the camera that I use. Has quite a zoom lens on it, and still learning that. So I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully everything is going to work. Here we are. Can everybody see that? Are we good on the screen? Awesome. Excellent. Woo, technology is with me tonight. Very good. I put a nice presentation together about some of the wildlife that I see in the park every day. I hope you enjoy it. A little bit about me. My name is Chantal Taunton, as was in the introduction. You'll see my email there. If you have any questions whatsoever, or if you have any questions after the PowerPoint, don't hesitate to contact me by email. This is my office phone number if you have any further questions or anything that you need to ask by phone. I'm also on Instagram. My Instagram name is The Nature Digest. And I am working on a website. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do is put together a website. So that is coming soon. A little bit about me. Julia knows I don't like talking about me, but you might want to know. I'm going to move you guys over here. There we go. A little bit about me and what I do in the park. I identify, document, and add all park species to the North Carolina State Parks Natural Resource Inventory Database, and it's also short for NRED. And you can access that database by going to the ncstateparks.gov website and go under Learn, and then pull up the tab for the database, and you'll see all the species that I've documented, plus their individual pictures with that. And I believe as of yesterday, I was up to 64 bird species alone for our little park. And our little park is not but 164 acres. So I think we're doing pretty good. I also do a bi-weekly park digest. And if you want to receive that, please send me an email and I will add you to my email list, and you will get a nice park digest. Lots of pictures in it and some nice videos, some cute information. I like to keep it short and sweet and simple. I also do bird walks. I had a fantastic bird walk yesterday with about 18 people. I did a custom bird walk with the South Wake County Conservationists, and we saw all kinds of things in the park. We saw green herons, we saw orchard orioles, and it was fantastic. We had so much fun. I'm also a content curator for the Environmental Educators of North Carolina. Basically, they're using my pictures in a positive way. I also collaborated on a YouTube video that you can see on YouTube. It's a North Carolina Museum of Art Birds in the Park. A lot of fun to make that. I am a docent educator for the museum. And of course, let's not forget, I also have a couple of duties as a park ranger as well. Let's see. Yes, that is me. That was a long time ago, but yes, that is me. I was born and raised in the Netherlands, and I came to the United States in 1990, became a U.S. citizen in 1993. I joined the Army Reserves in 1994 and started my law enforcement career with Fayetteville Police Department in 1995. I also was a basic law enforcement training director for 8.5 years. Basically, I ran a police academy, supervised 30 instructors, a couple of hundred students. The firearms instructor, self-defense instructor, general instructor, still am since 2003. And I joined the North Carolina Park System in 2019. I love it. I'm really at home in the park system. I also was just hired as an outdoor instructor for the city of Raleigh, and I'll be working at Lake Johnson as a kayak instructor. So enough about me. Let's talk about that park because that's what we're here for. I'm going to give you a very, very teeny tiny short brief, a little bit of history about the park. Park used to be woods, turned into farmland, became a Confederate camp called Camp Mangum. It also was a World War I camp, polk training camp facility. And it turned into, in 1963, a youth detention facility was on site. And some of you might even remember that off of Blue Ridge Road. I think I remember driving by it too. It didn't close until 1999, so that's pretty recent history. And I dug up this old photo, and it's amazing to look at that picture. Actually, it took me a few minutes when I looked at that picture. In the background is our East building that we have now, so that is quite a remarkable picture when I looked at that. So the youth detention facility closed in 1999. It was bulldozed in 2000. And if you come to the park, a nice little fun fact about that, they used the rubble of the youth detention facility to make some of the meadows in the park. So it's really, really interesting. The smokestack, some of you are very familiar with that smokestack. I get a lot of questions about that smokestack. It is there. It is a part of the old youth detention facility. It kind of serves as a reorientation point. If I have people in the park that need to go back to the parking lot, I always tell them, just find a smokestack and you'll find a parking lot. So I get a lot of questions about the smokestack. Do birds nest in it? Do we have chimney swifts in it? Do we have birds in it at all? We do not have any chimney swifts in the smokestack, but we do have some rock pigeons that call it home. So it's a nice little conversation starter when I do my bird walks. So enough about the history. Let's talk a little bit about the park itself. This is one of the more recent maps that I was able to pull up. Again, 164 acres in the middle of Raleigh. We have some wonderful trails. The Blue Loop Trail is a very easy to walk trail. It's all paved. And I do most of my bird walks off of the Blue Loop. We have a lower meadow trail, beautiful. The sunflower field, if you come and watch it, it should be coming up in July. The sunflower should be coming up in July. I can't wait myself because we're going to have some awesome bird sightings in that field and some great photography opportunities with the sunflowers. So this is a nice little overview of the park. Of course, the west building here, east building here. I'm sorry, that's a parking lot. West building here, east building here, and we still have the mummy, the golden mummy exhibit happening as we speak. Thank goodness Art and Bloom is coming as well. I believe it's the first 2 weekends in June, and the first weekend is already sold out. So it's going to be a full house for Art and Bloom. I'm kind of looking forward to that. It'll be wonderful to have a lot of people in the museums again. Some of the categories of wildlife that we're going to talk about. Birds, obviously, I'm a big bird fan. And we're going to talk about some raptors, pond dwellers, woodpeckers, songbirds, sparrows, and the warblers. They're coming through, and I have captured a few of those warblers, and we'll see some pictures of that. It's a very exciting time for birders. We'll also talk about some mammals that we will find in the park, and if you can hack it, we've got some reptiles to look at it as well. If you can't hack it, you can skip through it and leave me, but I wish you would stay because we've got some information about that. I always try to educate people about that is not a copperhead. And so we'll talk about that in the park, and we'll talk about that here, and maybe I can get you over that fear a little bit. So let's talk about raptors. What do we see in the park? American kestrels. We have an American kestrel couple in the park. They are actually nesting off-site right now. Love seeing those guys. They're the fastest falcons in the United States, and quite difficult to photograph. I was able to catch this kestrel in flight. Actually, I don't know how I did that, but he came straight down from one of the gyre rings, and I snapped it just in time. So I kind of partial to that picture. They're not very big. They are maybe just a little bit bigger than a mourning dove, but they are super fast. They mainly eat grasshoppers and small insects, maybe some small rodents. They like to hang out around a pavilion, if you're familiar with that area. And again, they're nesting off site, so when they're done with the babies, I hope they come back to our park. The red-tailed hawk, we have a pair. One of my original hawks, and this is this one right here, paired up. And so they are also nesting off site right now. And it is one of my favorite birds because it's such a regal looking bird. This was actually one sequence that I photographed. This bird flew from one tree to the other tree and sat there and just gave me this beautiful pose. So very, very lucky to strike that picture there. As you can see, the telltale sign of the red-tailed hawk is that beautiful rusty red tail on this bird, and you can't quite see it. You can see it better in this picture. The red-tailed hawk has a belly band of brown feathers, and that kind of differentiates itself from the red-shouldered bird hawk that we will be looking at next. The red-tailed hawks, quite large. They're just about unmistakable when you see them. I get a lot of people when they're walking in the park and they see a red-tailed hawk, they're like, "Oh my God, what's that eagle?" And it's usually a red-tailed hawk that we see. So very large bird. So the red-shouldered hawk, as you can see, there's a big difference with the breast feathers. And I believe this is a juvenile coming into a mature stage because there's some brown feathers that have not yet come through. On the mature ones, their entire chest is mottled brown, and the size, they're much smaller than a red-tailed hawk. The chest color is different from the red-tailed. On the tail, you'll see bands on the red-shouldered hawk, and the sound is different as well. As a matter of fact, fun fact, for most Westerns, they will use the screech sound of a red-tailed hawk, but they'll show a bald head eagle, and it's not the same. So if you see a Western, now you'll know. We also
Somebody
have
in
great
the
horned owls in the park, believe it or not. And this picture I took, I believe it was last weekend. So I was very surprised to see this beautiful bird back in the park because the picture on your right I took I believe it was in January, and they moved off site. They actually went west of our park, and I know exactly where they went to because I know where the nest was. And so this young man or young lady just has been coming back to the park. So I'm not sure what happened with the hatchling. I hope it survived. And this owl may just be back in our park hunting and bringing prey back to the hatchling. I'm not sure, but I was very surprised and happy to capture this beautiful great horned owl in our park last week. It is quite a stare that I got from this beautiful bird. It's pretty intimidating, actually. Um, just fascinating, fascinating. Their talons are deadly. They can shred a human to bits. So if you ever get in touch with one or if you ever rescue one, grab the talons first, because if you don't, you will go to the emergency room. They are deadly. Another raptor that we have in the park currently, we have a pair of Cooper's hawks nesting in our park. It's a beautiful raptor, as you can see, the red eyes, the gray top feathers. It is an absolutely glorious bird, and I've seen it on several occasions coming back with prey, and unfortunately, they like little songbirds for lunch and dinner. So it kind of broke my heart to see that, but that is unfortunately nature. Um, it they have a very unusual call, and I'm going to try to pull that up, and hopefully you can hear this. If you ever hear it, you'll never forget it, because the first time I heard it, it really caught me by surprise. So I'm hoping that you can hear this. You can't hear it. I'll tell you where you can pull that sound up. If you go to the Audubon website and put in the Cooper's hawk and listen for the sound, you will be surprised, because you think it's some kind of mammal. At least that's what I thought when I first heard it. And I'm like, in the world. But it is an amazing sound. And it, again, a beautiful bird. I'm in love with these Cooper's hawks. They hopefully have a successful nest this year, because I think last year the female was a juvenile and just was oblivious to making a nest and having babies. So fingers crossed for this year. Pond dwellers, as you might know, the park has a good sized pond, and you'll find me there probably a lot of the time, because we have a lot of action around that pond and we have a lot of visitors to that pond. Some of the visitors that we have over the winter time are some of these hooded mergansers, beautiful ducks. They are diving ducks, which means that they'll actually take a big gulp and they'll go underwater and they'll find their prey. Um, all the way underwater. They'll eat crustaceans, little fish, and then all of a sudden they'll pop back up and they'll have a big crayfish stuck out of their beak, and it is a beautiful duck. The males have this little hoodie, black, white, and brown in color, as you can see from the picture. The female, she's adorable. She has these little cheeky cheeks, and it's like she's always smiling, and I just love this picture that I took of her. Struck a nice pose for me. Very happy with that. Again, these are diving ducks, and you will see these in the winter time. Mallards, pretty standard ducks. We actually don't get them in the pond very often, but I thought I'd show these to you because I could not believe how blue the blue on their wings were when they spread out. It was so electric blue that I just had to show you these beauties. Some surprise visitors to the pond that I was able to capture. Over the winter, I saw two male buffleheads, and these are all also diving ducks, which means they go underwater, find their prey, and pop back up. The gadwalls, on the other hand, they're dabblers, which means they kind of float on the surface and they'll stick their head down, dabble up, and come back up. But the biggest portion of their body stays on the surface. It's a beautiful duck and a surprise because I think he was only in the pond one day, and I was lucky enough to get this picture. Just gorgeous. They usually are in larger groups. So I think this little guy was just a little off course. So my wading birds, and I don't know, I'm sorry, that bullfrog, it was horrible. Um, I had to stand there while this green heron was trying to eat this bullfrog, and the bullfrog lost. I hate to say it, but it just shows kind of nature and what they eat. The pond has a lot of bullfrogs, and right now there's a lot of bullfrog tadpoles in the pond, and they're huge, they're massive. They provide a lunch buffet for these great blue herons, and these great blue herons have a voracious appetite, let me tell you. They are also known, unfortunately, to sometimes take little ducklings and eat them. So nature is very cool sometimes, but it is what it is. These green herons, one of my favorite ones. When I finished up my bird walk last Saturday, we actually saw two green herons in the trees adjacent to the pond. Huge surprise because I had not seen them for a couple of months. So they're fantastic birds, and you can't see it from this picture, but their necks extend ridiculously long. They like to wade along ponds and lakes, and they're quite sneaky because sometimes, most of the time, you don't even see them. They'll hide behind the reeds, and they can move very slowly. Fascinating birds. Belted kingfishers, fantastic birds. We on occasion get them at the pond. They do not like my camera at all. I'm having a very hard time photographing them because as soon as they see me, they take off. I usually hear them before I see them, and when I hear them, I start running towards the ponds because I really want to get a picture of them. In this case, as we talk about the colors, sometimes, most of the time actually, the males are much more colorful than the female. In this case, you can see that the female actually is more colorful than the male. She has a rusty belly band, as you can see in this picture, that sets her apart from this male right here. So they're very easy to identify in flight and as they're sitting still. This male right here, I actually caught this male at Lake Crabtree in flight. How I did that? I don't know, but I think it's a pretty awesome picture. Um, they will dive down from a high perch into the water. If you've ever seen a documentary on it, fantastic fishers. They will come up with a fish, beat it against a tree limb, and swallow it. They're great to watch and very entertaining. Woodpeckers, we have several different types of woodpeckers in the park. The yellow-bellied sapsucker is the only migrating woodpecker in the United States, and you can see just enough yellow on his little chest to make his namesake. This is a male. The males have a red head feathers and a little bit of red under their beak. The females will not have the red head feathers. Same thing with the red-bellied woodpecker. The females lack the head feathers, but will have the red nape in the back. And unfortunately, when I took this picture, the female actually had a nest, and she kept coming back to it, and I captured her with her little head peeking out of that same nest. And during my yesterday's bird walk, unfortunately, that whole top of that tree had blown off with those high winds. And I was heartbroken. I mean, I was actually broken up the whole day about this because it was so sad to me to know that this poor little woodpecker had worked so hard to make this nest and lost it. Um, we saw the parents frantically looking for the nest last Sunday, and again, it is nature. It can happen. I keep my fingers crossed that they will rebuild. They can have 2 to 3 roosts in the south per year. Fingers crossed that we have red-bellied woodpecker babies to come. But it sure was sad. We have downy woodpeckers in the park as well. This is once again a male, as you can see. He's got that little red nape on the back. And as you can see here with the female pecking away at that dead wood, she does not have that red nape in the back. The difference between the hairy woodpecker and the downy woodpecker is size. The downy woodpecker is much smaller than the hairy woodpecker, and the hairy woodpecker has a much longer beak. So look for that major difference in those two woodpeckers. This nest box, by the way, is adjacent to the pond, and it is not a nest box for a woodpecker. That is a bluebird nest box. The other two nest boxes adjacent to the pond are nuthatch boxes, and they're actually occupied right now. It's the cutest thing. Songbirds, we have songbirds in the park. We have lots of songbirds in the park. I'm sure you've seen the northern cardinals in your backyard as well. A beautiful bird to photograph, and I actually have the hardest time photographing one. But I just love seeing these guys in the wintertime because they just kind of they stand out so much against dead trees and dormant trees. I love photographing them. The American goldfinch. This was they were eating on a sweet gum. That's one of those sweet gum balls actually provides a lot of seeds for these birds during the winter time. So think about that before you cut one down. American goldfinches are they're coming back, they're migrating back, and you will see them in abundance when the sunflower field starts to bloom. It's going to be packed with them. It's going to be little yellow birds flying all over the place. Some have been overwintering with the pine siskin. So if you saw an American goldfinch this winter, you were probably right. And of course, in the springtime, the males will transform into this bright yellow plumage that is very recognizable of the American goldfinch. Cute little things, they make for great photographs. Eastern bluebirds, who does not like an eastern bluebird? They were almost extinct, and due to the banning of certain pesticides and education and public awareness, they've made a huge comeback. And we have several nests that are occupied right now by bluebirds in our park. And this little guy actually has an active nest right near the pavilion. And that's exactly where I took this picture at as well. Love seeing the bluebirds. They can have up to 3 roosts a year. And actually, the babies, the babies that have fledged from the first roost have been known to help raise the babies from the second and third roosts, and help the mom and daddy out just a little bit. When you have a bluebird nest box, and I've raised many bluebird babies when I had when I owned my own house. When the babies fledge, it's okay to go in and clean that box out and take the nest out. Do not leave it in the box. Clean the box out with a stiff brush and close it back up. And before you know it, mom and dad will be back in and checking that nest box out, and they will have their subsequent roosts with new babies. So it's okay to clean those out. What else was I going to say about bluebirds? Oh, a lot I can say about bluebirds. I can't think of it right now. One of my favorite birds to photograph as well. Their bright blue colors just kind of brighten the wintertime, and it's just a wonderful little bird. Let's see. We've got Carolina chickadees. Plenty of those in the park. Northern mockingbirds, we all know them. Very judgmental. uh, Once they start singing in the springtime, they can mimic so many sounds. If you stand there and listen sometimes, I had one, as a matter of fact, in my neighborhood, if I listened closely to him, I could actually hear him do a siren. It was amazing. First I thought it was a fire truck, but it's just a mockingbird. That same mockingbird also did the first two tones of a red-shouldered hawk, and they do that just to kind of chase away all the other birds from the feeders so that they can eat by themselves. But amazing birds, very territorial, and very judgmental. Uh, the hermit thrush, a beautiful bird. They forage low to the ground, and that's usually, I have 2 or 3 places that I look for them in the park, and I usually find them there as well. Beautiful speckled chest, and their little tail will dip uh, just about all the time. They have a very haunting sound. If you can look it up on the Audubon website and check the hermit thrush uh, song, gorgeous. There's nothing like it. These are two of my favorite little guys. The ruby crowned kinglet and the golden crowned kinglet. My favorite little kinglets to photograph. I was in the middle of the forest when I was surrounded by these kinglets and tufted titmice and chickadees at one point on a day in January, and it was fascinating. These little guys came so close that I almost couldn't focus my lens on it. They when they get excited, these little crowns will stand up, and it is an amazing sight to see. They're very tiny, um, smaller than a sparrow, and they will not sit still. These pictures actually still amaze me that they took 1 second and they sat still for me, and I was able to snap that picture. I shoot continuous high, so I can snap several pictures per second, so that helps if there are any photographers out there. But they are amazing little birds. If you, in the wintertime, see something flittering about in the trees, high up in the trees, um, flittering about mad, it's usually a kinglet. They do not sit still. I call them the little ADHD birds of the avian world. The brown thrashers, every time I look at this picture, I just have to laugh because this brown thrasher had such an attitude. I just love it. Beautiful, beautiful bird, very recognizable by the speckled chest, quite the long beak, and they also like to forage low to the forest floors. I know I have a lot of favorites, but the song of the brown thrasher is also a gorgeous song. Cedar Wax Wings, and believe it or not, I thought that they had already migrated north. Well, surprise, surprise, we saw a flock in the park yesterday. So I'm going to be looking out for those guys when I go back to work Wednesday again, because maybe I can get some more pictures of them. That would be nice. I call them the little bandits of the avian world. They have these little masks and this little tuft of hair popped up. They're beautiful birds. Cedar waxwings, if you see these little red tips on their wings, they're aptly named cedar waxwings because that is actually a little bit of wax on their wings. They fly in flocks, and it is also a bird that you will hear first before you will see them. They have a very shrill sound. And when we were walking yesterday, I heard that sound and I thought my mind was playing tricks on me because I didn't think they were here anymore. But that is the one way that I was able to identify them. And the 18 people that were with me were just they were just thrilled to see that flock of cedar waxwings. They love to feed on berries. And if you have privets in your yard, I know privets are invasive, I know that, but they provide a lot of food for these cedar waxwings, so maybe not cut them down. Beautiful bird. Who does not like a Carolina wren? Uh, it is it's a little bird that is very near and dear to my heart. It has a special connection to my mother that I lost last year of a heart attack. So I have a very special connection with a Carolina wren. If you ever walk about in the woods, it is probably the first bird that you will hear because they are very loud, very small, but they will put the whole forest on alert if there is stranger danger. So you'll hear them before you will see them. They're very hard to identify because of their colors. They blend in very well with the brown trees, but great little bird. This little marsh wren was a surprise last year. I found it in the sunflowers field. And as you can see, those are dead sunflowers, which is a great time for birds because obviously, what do we put in our feeders? Black oil sunflower seeds. And these were, of course, um, organic. They were grown in the park, and this marsh wren just absolutely loved that. A huge surprise, and the first time that I've ever seen a marsh wren. A very cute bird. Do we have any questions up until this point?
There was a question in the comments from a little earlier about where are they nesting and will we be able to see the babies when they arrive? I think it was about a specific bird, but you could answer in general.
Okay. Well, again, we have some nest boxes in the park, and I do keep an eye on them, although I try not to disturb any nests. Now, I've got a little inside scoop. I know exactly where my orchard Orioles are building a nest right now, so that's really exciting, and I am going to keep an eye on that nest. Um, and if my red-bellied woodpeckers had kept their nest, I would have been able to tell you that information. The bluebird babies tend to fly out of the nest boxes as soon as they fledge. If they if they fall to the ground, it is okay because mom and dad know where they're at. Um, Bluebird babies, I've seen it myself, have the ability to climb up pine trees. It's an amazing ability that these little guys have already. So if you find a baby bird, if it has feathers, it's okay because mom and dad know where they're at. So don't pick them up. Make sure that the pets are away from the baby. And mom and dad will know that that little baby is in that corner of your house, maybe, or under that bush. So it's okay to leave it there. Uh, Nature does take care of itself. And unless they have absolutely no feathers and are blind and they don't have their eyes open yet, you may contact a wildlife rehabber or try to carefully put that baby back in the nest. But if it has feathers, it's going to be just fine. The park is quite big, so as far as keeping up with the babies, it's a little bit difficult for me. But if you subscribe to my park digest, if I have babies in the park, I will take pictures of it and you will get to see that as well.
Have you seen nesting hawks?
I'm sorry?
Have you seen hawks' nests?
I know where the Cooper's Hawk's Nest is. It is in a location where it's kind of off limits to the public, and it is way up high in a pine tree. So I cannot actually look down in it. I can only look from the bottom, and every now and then I'll look at it with my binoculars. So fingers crossed for babies. The red-tailed hawks are off-site. The kestrels are off-site as well. The great horned owls were nesting off-site as well. So, and I think that's because maybe they're thinking there's a lot of people in the park. It's not the safest place for my baby. So, um, they that might be the reason why they're nesting off of our campus. Continue? All right. Let's talk about sparrows. Sparrows, they're the hardest bird species to identify. So I put some easy to identify sparrows up here. And the dark-eyed junco, also called a winter bird, because if the dark-eyed juncos arrive in North Carolina, the saying goes, winter is coming. So they're all moving up north now to their breeding grounds, but when they come down here to North Carolina, winter comes. So you may be happy to see those. I am, and some of you may not. Beautiful slate-colored little bird, and they forage usually in flocks on the forest floors, and they're pretty easy to see in the park as well. Pine siskins, um, very it's a very interesting bird because their flocks come in waves, and this year was a large year for pine siskins in the southeast. It was remarkable because a lot of people all of a sudden were wondering, what is this bird? And it was determined that this was the year for the pine siskins to come to the southeastern United States. Um, if you had bird feeders up, you might have seen them coming in huge flocks to your bird feeders. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what are these bullies? They don't really like other birds to come to the feeders. So yes, they are slightly bullish in their behavior at feeders. Also, with the pine siskin came, unfortunately, a bacterial infection that the pine siskins were very vulnerable to. And what it meant was that uh, it was a salmonella related disease, and some of you may even know more about it than I do, but it was caused by dirty feeders. So the North Carolina Wildlife Commission actually put out a statewide alert to take your feeders down, please, for a couple of weeks for this bacterial infection to go away. And the pine siskins were particularly affected by that infection, which caused their eyes to swell up terribly bad, and basically die a very tragic death. So I think we're past that now. A good thing to remember, if you have bird feeders up, wash them regularly with a bleach solution. And I use a 1 to 10 solution. Scrub it real good, let it air dry, and then put them back up. And I would do that once a week. I think that's fair to do, but keep those feeders clean. The white-throated sparrow, very noticeable. They have a little white patch under their beak right here. Cutest little song. And they're here for the wintertime. They're moving up north for their breeding season. And it's the cutest little thing to see. Chipping sparrow, I still saw some in our park. So you may have some stragglers that kind of like to stay in our state instead of flying all the way up north to their breeding grounds. Again, sparrows, a huge amount of different types of sparrows. So I just kind of condensed it to those four. The exciting group, of course, that is coming in now is the warblers. An amazing array of birds as well. And so exciting to see them in the park. The pine warbler, you may have seen those already in the park. They're pretty early as far as migrating. This one, I couldn't believe when I got that picture back. It was like almost bright neon yellow. Beautiful. The common yellow throat, They are just now coming in. They're kind of late in their migratory route, so very hard to spot because they like to stay in undergrowth, and you won't easily see them. You will hear them, however. Black and white warbler, this one was in the park in the wintertime, so I think this one decided to stay in our state because it's nice and warm in here during the winter. They crawl about like a nuthatch up and down the tree. Very tiny, almost the size of a nuthatch, and it is one of the easiest to identify warbler because of the black and white plumage that they have. Cute little thing. This prairie warbler, I photographed this prairie warbler just last week. It was the only one that I saw in the park. I was very lucky to get this picture. It is a beautiful example, and once again, I was able to identify it by sound first. It's just a gorgeous bird. The yellow rumped warbler, this male I captured in its springtime outfit. The males will change from a very drab, almost olivey, non-existent outfit to this beautiful yellow, black, and almost like a bluish plumage. And they're the cutest little thing. They will hop around mid-high in the trees. The females, kind of drab orange, and um, there were I saw several couples in the park, so I think it's going to be a good year for the yellow rumped warbler, also called butterbutts. There's a reason for that because they will have a little yellow patch right here under their little top tail feather, so it kind of looks like a little yellow butterbutt. Yellow warbler, I photographed this beautiful bird by the pond, and it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous warbler. Some of the other birds that we have in the park, and one of my least favorite birds is the European starling. Um, Gorgeous to photograph because of the iridescent feathers. It is a bully bird, non-native to the United States, and they will actually bully birds out of nests and take over the nest. I saw that happen with the red-bellied woodpecker, unfortunately. Um, I have to chase them away from my feeder, and this is one of my feeders actually, and I tap on the window to get him off my feeder. They will eat you out of house and home if you have good food out there. So not my favorite bird. One of my more favorite birds is this ruby-throated hummingbird, and I actually have a female coming to my feeder at my house. So I'm lucky to have her. A quick tip on making some hummingbird feed: don't buy the colored feed in the stores. It's not necessary. You can make your own hummingbird feed. 1 cup of regular white granulated sugar, 4 cups of water, 2-minute boil. That's the easy one to remember. 1 cup of regular granulated sugar, 4 cups of water, 2-minute boil. Let it cool down, put it in a jar or a canister, and put it in their feeders, and you will get some hummingbirds. The best hummingbird feeders that I think are out there have the wide mouths, so they're easy to clean and easy to fill. Perky Pet has some really good ones. They're coming in. The ones we see on the East Coast are the ruby-throated hummingbirds. The males have a noticeable red patch under their beaks, and I just love hummingbirds. Very hard to photograph, by the way. White-breasted nuthatches, um, cutest little thing, run up and down the tree like mad. And when I photograph these guys, just like the brown creeper on your right, I stay 2 or 3 feet above them because by the time I'm focused, that nuthatch or that brown creeper has met me, and I get to snap a good picture of them. Brown creepers, fascinating little birds. They blend in with the bark so well, as you can see from their feathers with this bark right here. I've got some great pictures where you can't even see the bird against the tree, and I will use those in my next PowerPoint as well because very hard to spot, but they'll creep up and down the tree extremely fast. They'll look under the bark. You can see where their little beak is kind of curved. They'll use that to pry back the bark and find some nice juicy bugs under the bark. Do we have mammals in the park? Yes, we do. Absolutely. We have a beautiful amount of deer in the park. As a matter of fact, during our walk yesterday, we saw 3 deer in the park. It was fascinating, beautiful sight. We have several, I'm not going to say several bucks, we have several does, and the babies are getting ready to be born. We have, I know, 1 buck and 1 doe with 1 or 2 yearlings in the park as well. I always love to see them, and it's just a fascinating sight. This picture I took, I'll never forget it. It was June the 14th of last year. It was in the midst of COVID. It was 4 months after I lost my mother, and that picture, it always gets me, gets me emotional because it's just this motherly bond that I see every time when I look at this picture, and it always gets me. I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful, sweet, sweet picture, and I was so lucky to be there and take that picture. So one of my favorites. We have sleepy squirrels. I know you don't have any of those in your backyard. They're very rare. Oh, I was sarcastic. A chipmunk actually was a pretty neat surprise in the park to see it. And it was near a little creek. I haven't seen it since that took that picture. Woodchucks, we have them in the park. They are also called groundhogs for those folks that know it by that name. I've also heard them called whistling pigs. I have no idea how anybody can come up with that word, but I'm sure somebody can explain that to me. Buns, I love my bunnies. We have, I'm sure, quite a few in the park. So reptiles. I'm going to run kind of through this because some of you might not want to see pictures of snakes, but I always use it as an education tool. So these are not copperheads. I always start with that one because people always think that, oh my God, that's a copperhead. No, they are northern water snakes. They're harmless. I wouldn't mess with them because they will defend themselves if you start picking them up. But you will see these guys, as these were and are, hanging around water features. This female right here, and females are usually larger than the males. This female hangs out near a little creek on a black culvert. And this is, I believe, her boyfriend. I could be wrong. I didn't ask her, but beautiful snake, and they always kind of hang together in the same location. This, however, is a danger noodle, as we would call that. This is definitely a copperhead. And as a matter of fact, I was about a foot away when I saw that copperhead. And as you can tell from the big yellow arrow that I put, here is his tail, which indicates it is a juvenile. And the juveniles have, uh, um, from what I've been told, I'm not a snake expert at all, but the juveniles have more venom and they're unable to control their venom. And that could be a myth as well. So I stand corrected if that is not true. But the sight of this copperhead really did get my blood pressure up at the time, because if I had taken one more step back, it would have attacked me. So that is the danger noodle that we do have in the park. The black racer. These guys usually are pretty angry. They're pretty angry snakes. They are very fast. I saw one in the park Wednesday, and as soon as I saw him, it slithered away. So they don't want us near them. Neither rat snakes. I picked up a very large snake skin, was it Friday? near the cloud chamber, if you're familiar with that sculpture. It was huge. They're harmless. They are good for rodent control, and they get very large, hugely intimidated. And by the way, I am petrified of snakes, trust me. It won't show from these pictures, but right here I'm actually petrified. I was so glad to have this long pole. So I had some distance between myself and the snake. This is just a harmless rat snake, and this is the snake skin of a rat snake. Rat snakes shed their skin because they're growing. I'm actually 5'9", so you can see how large this snake skin is. They easily get 6 feet tall. This is a 5-line skink that I got a picture of. I love these guys because they have beautiful blue tails. We have turtles in the pond, of course, little box turtles. I think they're so cute. Snapping turtle, that was a surprise. I was glad to take a picture of this big guy. Be careful picking those snappers up because they can bite a finger off. There are ways to pick them up, and there's some videos on that. So I've done it because I was just worried about the turtle, but be very careful with those turtles. Do we have any questions? And yes, I did take that picture, and every time I see that picture, I have to laugh because it was the funniest situation. I'll give you a short backstory on that. I was photographing the skimmer butterfly that was on that flower. It's pickerel weed near the pond, and the frog was trying to catch this butterfly, and it slipped through his paws, and he fell down in despair. And I took that picture. So every time I look at that picture, I think about the desperation that frog had to go through. Um, do we have any questions for me? And yes, I took that picture. That is an indigo bunting, by the way, on the sunflower in our sunflower field.
Have you seen, like, I know you haven't worked at the park for a super long time, but have you seen things kind of change over the past year, like new birds or new animals coming in?
Um, I was very surprised with the great horned owls, because we're such a small park and we are surrounded by some pretty good traffic thoroughfares. So it was very surprising to see those great horned owls. Have they been in the park long? I don't know. Again, I started in August of 2019, and I've only been keeping up with the data since basically January of 2019. So I'm going to base more things on that data. The orchard orioles that we have in the park now, 2 males, 1 female, were also a huge surprise for me. The park is a is a huge nature attractor because we have some old growth stands, old trees, we have water features, we have little creeks, we have meadows. So I think all that attracts so many different birds that can safely live in that park and find the right environment to thrive. And that's what it's so fascinating about that little park. And I don't think anybody has brought that out yet. I think I'm the first one that is doing that. And I'm so happy to be able to do that because nobody knew that all these different animals and species lived in the park. So I'm so glad to be a part of that and bring that to you as well, and bring that attention to the variety of animals that we have in our park. I think it really opened a lot of people's eyes, even the people that like Dan Gottlieb, who was the major person behind the architecture of the park. I think he was a little bit surprised too to find so many different species in our park. I think it's wonderful.
Somebody asked about more information about your bird walks, like when do you do them?
Go to the website, the North Carolina Museum of Art Park, North Carolina Museum website. Go to the calendar for the outdoor events, and you will see a list of events that are coming up that are free, by the way. The events, the bird walks for May and June, April and May, I'm sorry, are already sold out. I'm sorry, but I will say this, if you want me to do a custom bird walk, I can certainly accommodate you. If you want to shoot me an email, I'm gonna bring that slide up one more time with my information. If you want to shoot me an email, I can certainly do that. I can do that during the week. I can do it during the weekends. Weekends, keep in mind, are a little bit more busier than during the week. But I can do custom bird walks whenever it fits into your schedule or any organization's schedule. That is not a problem. I would love to accommodate you with that.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
I have one more question. When are you at the park? I mean, do you just wander around so that if we're out for a walk, we would bump into you, or?
I do. Actually, I have my park regulars. I see them every day. I have a kind of a weird schedule now that every other weekend I work. I'm in the park 40 hours a week. You can see me. I'm usually in a uniform and I carry a big camera with me, and I drive an orange little Kubota all-terrain vehicle. If you see me, wave at me and come talk to me, because I love to meet you. I have a lot of regulars in the park. I see them every day, and I get to know a lot of things about the park that I might not see. So please come and see me. And if I'm not there, and if one of the other rangers is there, just ask about the bird nerd park ranger, because that's me. They know me. The guys that I work with, they're not involved in any of the animals or the things that I do, but they'll know me if you ask for the bird lady. But I have a crazy schedule. I'm hoping to go back to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays schedule. But for now, it's kind of a crazy schedule. But I do wander in the park a lot with my camera. So come and see me, and please say hi.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, there's my email. Don't hesitate to contact me. And if you go to Instagram, look up the Nature Digest, and you can see all of my pictures there, because I post most of my pictures on Instagram. And you can also find me on Facebook, by the way, by my name as well.
Great, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And this was recorded, so if any congregants, ask to see it after the fact, I can send it to them. If any of you in the call want me to send you a copy as well, I can do that too. So
Great, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having me.
yeah, thank you all so much for coming. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.